on the Northland Sports page. Welcome to hour number 2. For me, that's a perfect theme song to the way that the Timberwolves season came to an end on Thursday night. Right. A roller coaster of love. Maybe just the postseason could be summarized that way, because I loved watching this team get as far as they did. Nobody loves the way it ended. Maybe by the time you get off a roller coaster, you're a little bit queasy. I think by the end of Thursday night, we may have been. But again, if you look back on it the right way, you appreciate this Wolves season.
Oh, 100%. You have to, because remember coming into it, we had this potential disaster power forward driven center offense that nobody trusted, and they didn't need to. We had kids that we weren't sure. Jaden's a little petulant. We liked him, but we weren't positive. You had this superstar that hadn't quite figured it out yet, and Anthony Edwards, and those things started to click. You could see those things starting to work, and then it got us to where we got us.
Again, if you choose to remember the way the season ended, that's your prerogative, and you're going to be very negative as a result. I'm going to choose to probably remember most Game 7 against the Nuggets and that improbable win that resulted. And I'll tell you what, maybe the way that I started to realize just how improbable it was, is my favorite text I got that night was from our next guest. All of a sudden, just out of nowhere, it was, well, nobody saw that coming, did they? And it was from our good friend, Rick Rickert, who's back to talk NBA with us. Rick, good morning, sir. And yes, nobody saw that coming.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Now, what do you think of the Timberwolves season as a whole? Because, again, if you look at it that way, it's very positive. If you choose to just remember the last thing you saw, Thursday was as ugly as it gets. But as a whole, this was pretty good.
I think if you're a Wolves fan, I think you've got a lot to be happy about as far as where they're going and the trajectory of the team right now. Because Anthony Edwards, I mean, he's just starting to find his game and start to blossom. And, it sometimes takes a while. And, him coupled with, a really great, defensive line, he takes the brunt of the scoring, obviously. Karl Anthony Towns, takes a lot of that too. But, my goodness, I'll be the first to say I did not see them beating Denver. I really didn't, especially after, last season. And I knew they'd gotten better. I just didn't think they'd, gotten that much better. So I think if you're a Wolves fan, you've got a lot to be happy about in the coming years, as long as they keep that nucleus intact. And knock on wood, Mike Conley can stay healthy.
Yeah,
I agree with you on all those counts. Now, one of the things I said back in the first segment today, Rick, is it's kind of a love-hate with Minnesota sports fans in terms of what they do this way. I like the fact that we as a fan base don't tend to blame others for things that go wrong for us. We look inward first, which is an admirable quality. But at the same time, sometimes when we do that, we are just so hard on our own versus tipping the cap to opponents that are just damn good. Because how much of this is, well, Cat didn't shoot well. We had horrible turnovers down the stretch, had the lead with 5 minutes to go and couldn't close. Where I look at it and I go, look, Luka and Kyrie are still on a major heater. And sometimes you just go, that was good defense and you still made it. What am I supposed to do?
Well, that's the way I looked at it. I looked at it like, hey, what can you do? I mean, when you have a fantastic offensive line in Kyrie Irving and, gosh, I'm drawing a blank right now.
Luka's been like that, right?
Sorry. Yeah, Luka Doncic, where he's just, on fire. He had like 20 in the first quarter or something like that last game. Very hard to beat. Very, very hard to beat. If you ask my sister Natalie, she's going to say, it was all the refs. But you know what? You can only blame that so much. And, hey, John Wooden, he was always saying, don't make excuses. So, you just have to go out there and do what you can do. And, I think that, they were a little unlucky in the first couple of games because they were close games. But, you got, the other team was just hot. And I think they're peaking right now. So, I mean, that's good for Dallas, but not good for the Timberwolves. But, all around, great season for the Wolves. And if you're a Wolves fan, you should be very happy.
Certainly a lot of memories from it. I want to go on Natalie's take because she's not the only one I saw this from, that, the officiating is just killing us. And at times it did, at times it didn't. I just shrugged my shoulders because, like you said, don't make excuses or there are going to be bad calls either direction. But I also think, Rick, when it comes to the NBA, we'd be kidding ourselves if we didn't think that certain players get certain calls. And maybe Luka did, maybe Kyrie did. My question is this: did Anthony Edwards do enough where he's going to be that guy going forward? Well, you call that because, Ant drove the lane, or you don't call that because it's Ant versus somebody else.
Well, there's definitely that. I mean, you look at, history. Michael Jordan got the calls. LeBron James gets the calls. That's kind of the nature of it. You get a little more respect from the officials when you're a top level star. Is that okay? No, I don't think it is. But, we have humans reffing out there. Until they're replaced by robots, that's what you're going to get.
That's very true. And what will Alan Horton have to do if it's all robots? Everybody's equal. He couldn't complain about anything. Rick, I have a question for you quick. I remember visiting with Dad once about series, teams that are playing in series in the playoffs. And they always compared it to boxing matches, right? And so I wanted your take on this, that the Denver-Minnesota series was like two heavyweights throwing haymakers at each other. And if they connected, they knocked the other ones out because the scores were so big. And then the Dallas series was more like Hagler-Hearns, where they were throwing jabs at each other's noses, and then all of a sudden one would knock the other out. If you think about those two things, one's a little more entertaining than the other. And if you get jabbed a lot and then get knocked out, it feels like I shouldn't have lost that. Is that a fair comparison in that one?
I think it is in a lot of ways, but you know what? I'll take it one step further a little bit. I think that the Wolves had the capability of playing that jab game, like you're saying, but I don't think they adapted quickly enough. Like when they were going against Denver, it worked for them because, like you said, two heavyweights going at each other. That was the rhythm. That was the flow. High scoring, all that, and they won. And then the team that they played was completely different. I mean, you didn't have the Joker you were going against. You had Rudy Gobert, who's not as, he's more of a defensive guy than an offensive guy. A little bit slower maybe than the majority of, So they failed to adapt quickly enough, in my opinion. Not saying that was everything, but I mean that was definitely one facet that I noticed when I was checking them out there.
Yeah.
I think that's well said, Rick. I want to expand on the point about series because I like them in the sense that by the time you've played a team for a week and a half, you may have a new chapter in a rivalry. With Phoenix, I think we all forgot or maybe just realized how much we didn't like Devin Booker. By the end of the Denver series, Jamal Murray was kind of the villain of choice. By the end of this Dallas series, it was obviously Luka because he got booed when he got the Western Conference Finals MVP. There were people that said, before this series, I thought I really liked Luka, and now I really don't. But I think some of that is he did a lot of damage to your favorite team. So take this step back and tell me this. Is Luka a likable player or not?
It depends on who you ask. But I like Luka's game. I think he's a phenomenal player. His attitude on the court, you're going to have trash talkers. Heck, Michael Jordan was the biggest trash talker ever, and people loved him. Luka is a pretty big trash talker, and you have, it's a kind of a 50-50 thing, whether you like Luka or you don't. And a lot of it, like you said, has to do with, well, did he beat your team? That's what it kind of comes down to. But I think, I think overall, I think he's a good dude from what I've seen of him off the court. But it's kind of all in who you ask right now. And he did win the series in Minnesota, so obviously he's going to get booed. That you just got your team knocked out, and you're in an opposing team's arena. What do you expect? You expect them to cheer? No, it's not tennis. It's basketball. We cheer, we boo. You can wave things when people are shooting free throws. In tennis, you got to be quiet, right? It's a different sport.
I was happy to see Minnesota nice, at least for one trophy presentation, go out the window. They did boo. Kudos to us as a fan base for that. We are talking with Rick Rickert, former Duluth East Greyhound, former Minnesota Golden Gopher, and former Minnesota Timberwolves draft choice. Dave Cook, he's become kind of our favorite NBA analyst with our years on the show. Go ahead.
He is our NBA analyst.
He is our guy. Absolutely.
So Rick, I have a question about the Timberwolves rivalries. So it seems to me that Luka's performance on our home court in front of our fans who are booing them versus how the Timberwolves took care of Denver. Is the Denver rivalry one of respect And now do we have a new rivalry with Dallas where it's one of, man, we don't like you at all?
I think it's more of a bad blood rivalry at this point. But it's something for the Timberwolves to think about in the offseason, what adjustments they need to make. They got knocked out by Denver last year. They beat Denver this year. They got knocked out by the Mavs this year. They make some proper adjustments, they might just get that. So it's just a matter of the back office making the right off-season decisions as far as trades and drafts go. And then also, some motivation from the players too. I think that it could have gone the Timberwolves' way if they would have just, picked up the first couple games there. I could see them winning the series this year, but, when you're going against a hot team, things happen.
Absolutely, they do. And Rick, I think if this is a new blossoming Minnesota and Dallas rivalry, my question in the offseason too will be, who's Mark Cuban's rival supposed to be in this? Will it be A-Rod and Mark Laurie, or will it still be Glenn Taylor? That's the question we don't know.
Well, the old Mark Cuban would pick a fight with just about anyone.
Right.
The new Mark Cuban's a little softer, so I don't know. I don't know if he's just getting a little long in the tooth with it or what. But
he's doing enough winning; he doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, exactly. He's got his championship. He doesn't have to be as volatile as he once did, and I think he's playing to the crowd a little bit more nowadays than he used to when he first picked up the Mavs.
Absolutely. Speaking of playing to the crowd, I called you our NBA analyst, and with the years that we've had on this show, you have been. And I want to talk about a couple of analysts that, yes, analyst is a proper title, but also great player at some point was a proper title. One I like a lot. I'm going to start with him, and then we'll go to one I don't like much at all. But I talked about the text that you sent me after Minnesota beat Denver, and that was a fun one. The next time we texted, I think just a day or two later, it was the unfortunate news about Bill Walton. And I say analyst with Bill Walton because more of my memories are him on a microphone. But at the same time, I became a big NBA fan around 1985, 86. I was 6 and 7 years old. And Bill Walton was kind of the other guy on the Celtics that, they were giving him his flowers, as everybody likes to say now. You can go out with a bang and win with us. But, Dave Cook, who's a decade ahead of me, says probably one of the most underrated players of the 1970s. When you think of Bill Walton in your basketball traveling circles, what comes to mind first?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I remember the analyst more than I remember the player. I have to look back. I did a little, Googling on Bill, just to see about his career. And man, it was impressive. He had a fantastic career. MVP, and I think it was 78, if I'm not mistaken, 77 or 78, something like that. You guys may be able to fact check me on that one, but very, very good player. I remember the character, the guy who was on the microphone.
Yeah.
Very, very good on the microphone. And I did watch a speech of his. He's an unbelievable public speaker and motivational speaker, really. I mean, I look at that and I'm like, man, I that's something to strive for right there. I'd love to be able to do that someday, but he's heads and shoulders above almost all, other people that I've seen. There were basketball players transitioning, and that's a lot of, him being on the microphone over the years. But, man, I just remember that. I remember Luke Walton, his son, was at Arizona when I was being recruited there. And I had a good relationship with Luke. I haven't talked to Luke in many years now. But you could tell he was raised by a good family, and Bill Walton had that character, and I think that rubbed off on his kids too, because Luke was a great guy.
The crazy thing, Brian, is that I always saw Phil Jackson as the personality wannabe of Bill Walton. The whole Zen thing, the peace, calm, and whatever. Bill Walton was that in the 70s, and Phil said, you know what, I'm going to take this and bring it to the Bulls.
Right. The only difference was I think Bill Walton was very much okay with dropping humor in the mix. I look at Phil and I said, have you ever told a joke once in your life? But I want to go from an analyst like Bill Walton, who I loved, to an analyst who over the last couple of weeks I'm absolutely tired of. And I made a big segment about this when we were at Hoops Brewing last week. Rick, you just talked eloquently about Bill Walton. Called me out kind of similarly to what we did there. I couldn't handle it, but again, Dave called me out kind of similarly to what we did there. I couldn't handle it, but again, Dave They've called me out kind of similarly to what we just asked. I think you'd be okay with it if it wasn't against your favorite team. What's your take on Draymond Green behind the mic? We know the player, and that could be scrutinized, polarizing in its own way, but did TNT make a mistake here by handing this guy a microphone on the regular?
You have to understand the point of an analyst. It's not to be necessarily likable. It's about entertainment, and it's about creating controversy. So you have to have your level-headed commentators, but you also have to have the people that are going to poke the bear and make it entertaining for people, because if it's not entertaining, why are people going to watch?
True.
So on one hand, I think TNT made a great decision bringing him on. As far as, Draymond being a person that you should look up to, like I just remember back to the 90s when Charles Barkley was playing, and his famous thing was, "I'm not a role model," right?
Right.
That is kind of the way I look at Draymond Green, because Charles Barkley turned out to be a very entertaining figure, in the news media and, sports entertainment. So could Draymond become that? Maybe. And is it smart for a network to bring someone on there? Yes, cautiously. You don't want to go too far. But it is entertainment at the end of the day, and you have to make it entertaining for people. Does he, cross the line with Rudy? Yes, I think he does. That's just my opinion, though. My opinion doesn't mean squat when it comes to that. But I think that, he's kind of a jerk in a lot of ways. Not Rudy, but Draymond. And I'm not really down with the Draymond thing, but it is entertaining at the end of the day. As much as I hate that saying.
It is. People tune in to see what in the world is he going to say next. I guess maybe the simplified version of the question, Rick, would be, should a current player be allowed to do that? We know Kenny, Shaq, Charles, they've got resumes, but they've been out of the league for a long time. Is it right to have somebody currently playing where this could boil over in the next year on the court? Is that a dumb idea? I think it is.
Oh, I do. I think that's a mistake for a current player to do. Now, Draymond's reaching the end of his career, and maybe this is like dipping a toe in the water as far as, hey, is this going to work long term? Don't really think you should have a current player doing it, because it's given a platform, a very big platform, that, could positively or negatively affect, like, for instance, it could negatively affect Rudy, because now your public perception is what you're hearing Draymond say. And that could affect Rudy's next contract. Like, oh man, maybe he isn't all that. Yeah, that's tricky. That's tricky. I probably wouldn't suggest that, but then again, the networks make their own decisions on that, and I don't like current players doing that. That's all.
I agree with that. Talking to former Timberwolves draft choice, former Duluth East Greyhound, and former Minnesota Gopher, Rick Rickert. Let's talk about the Gophers a little bit, because Dave and I have talked with you and with anybody who will listen at length about the state of college sports and how some of it is, kind of being left hung out to dry with the transfer portal, with the NIL money, all that good stuff. Cam Christie becomes the latest to vacate the Gopher program. Ben Johnson is a good friend of yours. Ben Johnson has done a great job. Ben Johnson's ability to survive is getting tougher, don't you think?
Yes and no. I think that, the transfer portal does make things tricky. But yes, you lose one player, but at the same time, you're in a very big market. You have to use that to your advantage. You have to leverage this because of the new NIL deals. You're going to have more money in a bigger city for NIL deals. If you can just get the funding for it, you can attract players, not only great players to play, but you can attract them with the quote unquote, money deals that come from the NIL. I think that's going to play to his advantage. He just has to find a way to utilize that a little bit better, because Minneapolis is a big city. And if you look at the rest of the Big Ten, aside from like Rutgers and, most of the cities are smaller. I mean, Champaign, Illinois, how does Purdue have a good program? They're in West Lafayette. I mean, it's a lot smaller than Minneapolis is. You don't have as much money to draw from.
100%. Dave Cook, I have the answer. Please legalize sports betting in this state and let all the proceeds go to Gopher NIL money.
Rick, one of the things I heard a month ago now, Brian, is that the suggestion, and this was a football suggestion, but I think it goes to basketball as well. How long before a major company, let's just say 3M because it's a major company, purchases the Gopher men's basketball program? Now, obviously, they wouldn't buy it away from the university, but they could be the sole supporter.
They've already got the name behind Mariucci. Why hasn't it happened already?
Yeah, conceivably now, and out in the open, couldn't the business just buy them?
Theoretically, I guess they could be the major sponsor behind that. I think that because of the Gophers basketball team's lack of success in recent years, I think you need to have some stability and some proof of actual winning for multiple years before a company is going to jump on that, because nobody likes to back a loser. They want to back a winner. And if you have a winner, that's going to probably prompt multiple offers for naming rights. It's just a matter of time, I think.
Rick, another fantastic segment. I want to close with this. We are down to the Mavericks and the Celtics. In terms of dynamic duos, Kyrie and Luka, to me, might be a little better than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but the supporting cast, especially if Porzingis plays, now, mind you, I've been a Celtics fan for a long time. I like Boston a little bit, but who do you got in this NBA Finals?
You're not going to like my answer here. So I was thinking a lot about this. I'm looking at both teams. I think both teams are playing fantastic. I'm going with Dallas in 6 games, even though the Celtics won in double digits on the first 2 meetings this year. I just think they're peaking right now, and I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Dallas in 6, and that's a bold prediction, I know, but that's what I got for you.
That makes sense. That would make Dallas a champion. Speaking of champions, Miss Pepper, she's done it. State champion on the tennis court. You got to be very proud, my friend.
Oh, very, very proud. I sent you the article, didn't I? Yeah.
Yes.
So she's a champion. She was killing it. So very proud of her. On to the next now. We gotta keep building her up.
You and Cece, all you guys know how to do is win, and she's a chip off the old block. We appreciate another winning segment from you, my friend. Take care. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend. That is our guy. That is our basketball mind, Rick Rickert. It's always fun.
Oh, my gosh, yes, because he'll talk every single level, and his insights are, second to none.
Rick Rickert is outstanding. We're bumping out with a song that I used to like as a kid. All of a sudden this week, not so much. My name is Luca.
Right.
I live on the second floor. Yeah, he could shoot from the second deck and probably hit everything.
100%.
As a Celtics fan, I hope it stops now. The show's not stopping. We still got 2 segments to go. Stick around. We'll be right back. We're not bidding anybody goodbye. Yeah, we got a couple segments still to go. Buy or sell will happen right now. As it's Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. We are the Northland Sports Page. Then we're going to close the show. Dave and I both love catching up with athletes that we followed throughout their career, and Rachel Hagen is one of them, and she had quite a night back on Thursday.
Yeah. She's
going to check in as part of the Drawing Line segment, courtesy of Roll Architecture Studio, and enlighten us as to how that first year in college went as a basketball player, but talk a little bit about football and softball as well. How's that for a spoiler?
Yeah, we need to talk to her about her experience with J.J. McCarthy, too, to see if she even got to say hey.
100%.
He'd run through a wall for her.
He would. Everybody would. Rachel Hagen, she goes beast mode. She's one of the best. She will close the show. But first, it's time to play buy or sell, and here's how the game works. I'm going to give a statement for each of the 4 major sports leagues. If Dave agrees, he's going to say buy and tell me why. If he disagrees, he's going to say sell and tell me why. His responsibility, the order in which we play league by league, and of course, your great takes.
Well, I have to remember the league thing because I always get in trouble with that. So, Brian, let's begin with the NFL. They're kind of quiet right now.
All right, so the NFL, yes, they're spending time on softball fields, some of them anyway. So the NFL, the Vikings did sign, or re-sign if you prefer, because it's fact, Dalton Reisner earlier this week. The offensive line has been maligned for years. I think you could go as far back as when Steve Hutchinson was playing.
Yep,
might have been the last time that there was a rock-solid offensive line. It's part of my buy or sell today. As you look at this group going into this season, a much maligned unit, do you now consider buy or sell that the Vikings offensive line is a strength of this team?
Ugh, that's tough. Their tackles are a strength of the team.
Right.
Reisner helps. We don't know anything about Brandles. We don't. I know it was the Brandle part that was getting.
Or if it's Ed Ingram again,
or Ed Ingram, and frankly, we know what we have as a center, and he's okay. So if he steps up, if Bradbury steps up, and we've said this every year for 7 years, if Bradbury steps up, Yeah, I think they can be because their tackles are so good. But
right now,
I can't say that they're a strength. Dalton Reisner makes them better. And frankly, Aaron Jones makes them better. So we'll see. I'm going to sell that they're better.
I'm going to sell as well. And there's another piece that can make them look better. You mentioned a lot of them. But again, let's go back to what we had. And again, I was a Kirk Cousins fan. I appreciated him. I think he got dogged to death. He had some shortcomings, obviously, but he played the quarterback position well here. But one thing he didn't do was move around a lot. Now, I said he was more mobile than he got credit for, but that's because the credit he got was in the negative numbers. He was not a mobile quarterback by any stretch. A quarterback that can extend a play can make an offensive line look awfully good. I'm not saying Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy will necessarily do that because we haven't seen it yet. But the possibility is there much more than it ever has been. Because if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes is all world. The Kansas City Chiefs O-line is pretty good. But they're probably more revered because Patrick Mahomes can make a play last for 10 more seconds on his own.
100%.
So I'm going to sell too, but I think as far as the eye test goes, we could be buying as the year goes on.
As long as neither one of our quarterbacks get to hand up from Ed Ingram as much as Kirk Cousins did,
right,
as Ed's guy.
Don't get a forced fumble from your guard.
Right. All right, so let's go with the National Hockey League.
All right, so the National Hockey League, hockey immortality as far as Minnesotans are concerned, was dismissed from the Wild earlier this week.
Yeah.
Buy or sell that the loss of Darby Hendrickson will negatively impact the Minnesota Wild?
Sell. And you know I'm as big a Darby fan as there is. I think that every coach runs a course, and Darby's been there since Jock. And so I just think that another voice, a new voice, might be, it's not going to be a bad thing. And, I wish the best for Darby. He's one of my favorite hockey players and favorite guys that I've met. He's touched parts of my family, right? But I think they're due for a new voice.
So this is going to be one of those where I don't make for great radio because I could have said, yep, because I agree with everything that you said. Now, minus the fact that I was a huge Darby fan. In fact, our good friend and former co-host Topher Davis, he has a way of telling us when somebody's left the Minnesota sports realm.
Yeah,
because he will always text us, what was your favorite insert name here moment? And he said yesterday, what was your favorite Darby Hendrickson moment? And what was my smart-ass response immediately? Probably losing as a Richfield player to Duluth East 5-1 in the 1991 state tournament. So was I ever a huge Darby fan? No. Was I appreciative of him? Yes. But I think you're exactly right. If the Wild really want to be new regime coming out from under salary cap purgatory, and let's just do everything a new way, we still don't necessarily know who their coach is going to be, if they retain the gentleman, Mr. Hines, from last year or not. Yeah. If you really want to turn over a new leaf and hopefully follow the lead of your PWHL team and be that good, why not go for somebody new? Now, it depends on how much of the roster is going to be carried over, and they're going to go, Darby was my livelihood. Then you might see that. I think it's very hard. As much as I struggle to know, as many hockey head coaches as I know, I struggle to know what their impact is because I don't see the day-to-day stuff. I think it's even harder to know what an assistant coach's role looks like.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that's why it's okay that Darby's going now. I mean, he's been around for 15 years, and it's time to try somebody else, and that's cool. I love Darby Hendrickson.
Agreed. 2 down, 2 to go.
Yeah, all right. So let's go with Major League Baseball.
Major League Baseball. I really wanted to bring this up with Dave Hoops because he and I are probably two of the biggest Twins fans that I know. And the Minnesota Twins, except for probably from Dave Hoops and I, probably don't get enough credit for where they're at right now. P.S. I know we're hung up on cutting payroll and this team doesn't legitimately try to win a World Series, whatever your mantra is, fine. But they're actually playing really well right now and have survived a rash of injuries. And quite frankly, have survived some of their best players not playing their best. One of those is Pablo Lopez. Good outing last night. But buy or sell, just like I asked with Duran last week, that Pablo Lopez, at this point in the season, his performances concern you.
I'm going to buy. I'm going to say that his performances have concerned me because they're so up and down. Like the last game out, he pitched real well. Game before that, he got shelled. And aces have to be more stable, and that's what we thought he was. If he was a number 3 pitcher and he was good and
You'd
bad,
be thrilled right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But he's supposed to be our number 1. So yes, I am concerned. All the telltales as far as velocity and all that stuff that's fine. So his velocity isn't dropping like an elbow problem. But yeah, he's just been inconsistent.
I'm going to buy that it concerns me as well, and it's for a little bit different reason because I don't think the velo is dropping either, but hitters are adjusting because he doesn't seem to have a put-away pitch. He gets 2 strikes on a lot of guys, and then, it's a line drive up the middle. Or, quite frankly, the bigger concern is he seems to really struggle to keep the ball in the ballpark now. That was Joe Ryan's bugaboo a year ago and probably still is this year. Joe goes this afternoon, of course. But the amount of home runs that he's giving up is a career high right now. He gave one up last night, but you're playing in Houston, and he basically gave up a pop-up to left, which in that ball field will leave the yard.
Yep.
But he's got to get the ball down and keep the ball in the ballpark, because then I think he has both the physical and the mental tools to have the wherewithal to regain ace status. But right now it isn't there, and that's, quite frankly, to me, all the more reason why I'm impressed where the Twins are, because Ober hasn't pitched great. Joe Ryan has. Pablo Lopez might have been the worst starter of the bunch so far. You've gotten more out of Chris Paddock than you expected, and I think, knock on wood, you found a fifth in Simeon Woods Richardson.
Yeah, boy, there's might be the biggest
Yes,
overachiever
100%.
of all. We didn't even bring it up.
100%.
We didn't expect anything from him. All right, so let's finish it off strong. Let's go with the National Basketball Association.
All right, so Rick Rickert gave his prediction. I think you know what I want because you know my fandom. But who you got in this? Buy or sell? I'll phrase it my way as a Celtics fan. Buy or sell, Boston beats Dallas.
I'm going to buy, and honestly, I think it's a little bit like my fear about Dallas and Minnesota, because Minnesota was getting all the love, right? Anthony Edwards, next Michael Jordan, remember? Well, who's got something to prove? Luka, right? He was not going to get beat by this guy. Well, who's the best defensive guard in the league? Your guy.
Probably either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. Pick one.
Right. And so they got something to prove now. They saw Luka go off for 20 and a quarter, and they're not going to let that happen. And so I think Boston wins only because Denver's put a gigantic chip on the East champion.
And I'll buy that as well. And part of it, I'll just be 100% honest with everybody. I want that to happen. But I said it to Rick. I just think the supporting cast for Boston is that much better. If you go with dynamic duos, give me Luka and Kyrie over Jaylen and Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I do think Dallas has an edge there. But I just don't think you're going to see Lively live at the rim and go 16 for 16 or whatever again, because Porzingis can be a factor. Holiday might be the most overlooked best player in this series. Al Horford, the old man, still got something. And Derek White, for some reason, is the straw that stirs the drink for Boston. So I just think they have more overall talent. But if those two are on a heater, good luck. The other thing is, can you really expect them to shoot like that for another full series?
Well, I tell you what, they changed from series to series. They weren't doing much in the series prior to Minnesota. They went nuts. So, yes, they can. And here's the thing. If Luka doesn't go crazy in Game 5, Lively is probably the best, most important player on that team. And if he, because the game they lost, he didn't play.
Well, there's two other things to think about. If you're Boston, number one, this is the biggest test you're going to get, because you just haven't been tested to this point.
Yep.
But number two, if you're Dallas, aren't you paranoid of who's going to get hurt? Because against Boston, somebody does. Halliburton missed time with the Pacers. Yeah. Jimmy missed basically the whole series with the Heat. And they played Cleveland in between. Donovan Mitchell couldn't go in some of the big games. I'm putting Luka and Kyrie in bubble wrap right now.
The thing about Dallas is they're playing on house money, and it helps when you.
They're a 5 seed, by the way. Nobody remembers that.
Yeah, it helps when nobody expects you to be there, because now you have that it's us versus the world kind of thing that players like to use. And so they scare me, but I just think that the team they're playing is the team that if you're talking only about the other team, Boston's more than happy, because they're going to lock down those two guards because they don't want to be embarrassed.
So that's buy or sell for this week. We hope that you buy everything our sponsors are selling. We'll talk a little bit more about them in the final segment, which is Drawing Lines, courtesy of Roll Architecture Studio. One quick thing that I want to sell, because I'm buying every thought behind this. We talked about overachievers today. To all the high school graduates and all the college graduates that probably happened about a month ago, may you continue to overachieve. Chase your dreams. Go get them. We love talking to kids about those dreams. Dave, real quick, you and I got an opportunity earlier this week. We got to be part of a journalism class at Duluth Denfeld. Those kids were wonderful putting up with us. I even got word from their teacher, Mr. Wade Petrich, that the students enjoyed it. We enjoyed them.
Oh, my gosh. How fun was that? And then, you always have a good presentation when kids want to stop afterwards and visit about a few things. And we had, half the class stop by and ask us a question here or there, tell us their story. And it was a fantastic experience.
So high school kids, we love you. We support you. Don't forget about us when you become something. We'll talk to a student who hasn't forgotten about us. Rachel Hagen is Drawing Lines, courtesy of Roll Architecture Studios. Stick around. We'll be right back. Definitely need a written transcript of the lyrics to that song, but that is Work by Rihanna, because our next guest is doing a lot of work, whether it's in the classroom, on the basketball court, or lo and behold, at charity softball games as well. It's time for Drawing Lines, courtesy of Arolla Architecture Studio. That is just one of our illustrious sponsors. Dave Cook, you've got them all.
Absolutely. We'll start with Blackwoods. Their locations on London Road, Blackwater right downtown, Tavern on the Hill, in Proctor, and into Harbors. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Advantage Element Screen Printing, Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer, Brian Heat and Cool Your House with Kraus. Assisted Living Locators, our most recent sponsor.
Welcome to the family.
Free to use. Help your loved ones, help your family locate assisted living, memory care, independent living. Again, as getting to the point where you're helping your parents do that, we don't have any experience. Go to the person that is experienced. You can reach them at www.assistedlivinglocators.com/Duluth. That's assistedlivinglocators.com/Duluth. Arolla Architecture Studio, Hoops Brewing, and Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance.
As far as Assisted Living Locators, again, welcome to the sponsorship family. That business is owned by Kaylee Olson, who coached our next guest. Without further ado, we bring in Rachel Hagen. Rachel, Stevens Point Pointer by way of Duluth East High School. Last time we talked to you was about a scholarship. We're going to touch on that because it ties into today. But good morning. I haven't talked to you since you've been home, and welcome back to the area.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it because we were quite enamored with your night on Thursday night, scrolling through social media, and your mom is very proud of you for good reason, but she had quite the post about your evening. Now, everybody's about the Minnesota Vikings and OTAs and training camps coming and all this good stuff, but they were doing something a little bit different on Thursday night with the Thielen Foundation and CJ Ham very much involved in that with the charity softball game. You got a pretty special role. Tell us about Thursday night.
Yeah, so it was really cool. My whole family and I got to go and watch the softball game, and I wasn't sure if I was going to throw the first pitch or not. We talked about it before with his agent, but then I talked to him again at the game, and I decided I would do it. I was a little nervous, but I just went out there and did it, and it was really cool to be out there and to, talk with CJ a lot more and his family, see his family again.
I was going to say, has there been an amount of closeness between the two of you? Because, again, you got that opportunity thanks to being the Ham Family Scholarship recipient last year as a senior at Duluth East. This was part of the reason for the honor. Has CJ and Steph, have they stayed close to you at all, talked to you at all through this?
Yes, we definitely talk over social media. They see my Instagram posts about Point, and they always like them, or they, slide up and congratulate me on my year, and it's been cool. The last time I talked to them in person was CJ's football camp last year. So it was really nice to see them again and get to talk to them.
Good segue for us because CJ will have that football camp in Duluth later on this month as we're already in the 1st of June already. So that is coming and the year is flying. Yes, 2024 says hold my beer because it's going at a rapid pace. Now, Rachel, I got to be honest with you. If I had been at this game on Thursday night, now Dave and I have been to Vikings training camp before. We've met a lot of current and former Vikings in our lives. But I think in that atmosphere, I'd have been fanboying pretty hard. Did you have any moments meeting or seeing any particular player that you kind of had a pinch me moment that you were that close to them?
Yeah, a lot of my friends and I, we like JJ McCarthy. So it was cool to see him. I didn't get to talk to him, but it was cool to see him up close.
Did you get a chance to talk to any of the players? I know, CJ and you know each other, obviously, but did you get a chance to interact with any other Vikings?
I think I could have, but we went back and sat in our seats after I threw the first pitch, so I didn't really get to talk to anybody else, but it was still a really cool experience to be out on the field and to be surrounded by all those people.
No doubt about it. So walk me through the first pitch, because I've talked to folks that have done this at a Major League Baseball game before, and they're standing on the mound, and you got to throw it overhand, and they're concerned about throwing a strike. With softball, did you have to throw this fast pitch style? Did you have to slow pitch underhand and have a certain amount of arc, or what did we do with this proverbial first pitch?
They just told me to stand wherever I felt comfortable and kind of just throw it underhand. And I played baseball, not softball, so I was like, I'm just going to do a nice little toss.
I'm just going to chuck this. I like it. That's very good. So, Rachel Hagen, I want to talk to you, of course, about that first year of college, which I'm sure the Ham family was interested in too, because, they're proud of their scholarship recipients, but that scholarship is to help you go to that next level. Talk to us a little bit about that first year at Stevens Point, both as a basketball player playing for former UMD Bulldog Matt Hockett, but then as a student. What was life like being a college student for your first year?
I really enjoyed Stevens Point, basketball and like education-wise. I got really close with my teammates. I think that was part of me having such a great year was because Coach Hockett puts us through so much team bonding, especially in the fall. And like those, I'm so sad to be like away from those girls right now because we got so close, and to see the 5 seniors go it was really hard for me. But that's just really helped college be a lot easier because definitely school's a lot harder and lots more classes, more time management that has to be done. But I think I did the transition pretty well. I think that Diami Starks definitely helped me with this transition for like preparing me in AAU. So I wasn't like surprised by how much more work I had to put in because I was very well prepared. But yeah, it was a transition for sure, but I think the year went really well.
That's very well said, and that's a great shout-out to Diami Starks because not only is he a great basketball player and basketball mind, he's one of the smartest putting the student-athlete people that I know. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Rachel, I was wondering, looking back on it now, where was your greatest growth, maybe as a person, as a basketball player, wherever you want to put this, from being that senior in high school going to play ball to today, looking back on this whole year?
My greatest growth, I think a lot of my growth, happened in the fall of my first year of college because I had to do so much growing being by myself. But I also think that postseason has been my biggest amount of growth basketball-wise because I put so much work in, and I can already tell like I'm a lot more prepared for next year.
That's very well said. My last question is this. We often ask folks that have experienced something to give advice to people who haven't. Now that you've made the jump from a senior in high school that was on the floor for just about every minute she could be part of the team and was basically one of the star players to coming off the bench, maybe seeing playing time, be half of what it was in high school. Everybody talks about pace of play is going to be different. Caitlin Clark is learning at the next level. The physicality is different. There've got to be high school seniors listening right now that are making a jump next year. What's the advice you would give them to help them better prepare?
I think you just have to work as hard as possible because you're going in being an underdog already. Like you're an underclassman, you're a freshman, and you don't really have the expectation to play a ton. But working hard in practice, I think, was how I got some of my playing time and really pushing some of the upperclassmen. And just doing that and, really hitting the weight room and really doing conditioning, and you'll be ready.
I like that. I'm going to sneak in one more question. Your mom and some others always want to refer to you as D-Rod. They always want you to be Dennis Rodman. What player do you compare yourself to after playing a year at the college level?
Oh, that's hard.
That's a challenging one to end it on, yeah.
I don't know.
Is the Rodman comparison fair or not? I think you're too good of a scorer to be him.
I think that it's fair for the most part, but I am really trying to get better at, like, my growth in this summer is going to be three-pointers. So I'm really hoping that's not going to be the comparison after this summer, but I'd say it's decently fair.
All right, Rachel Hagen, you are more than decently fair when it comes to public speaking. We love you. We appreciate you. Thanks for joining us, and have a great summer, of course, but keep working on your game because we love watching it.
Yep. Thank you for having me, and thanks for talking to me today.
Absolutely. That is Rachel Hagen, the former Duluth East Greyhound, now Stevens Point Pointer. But what an honor this week, part of the Ham Family Scholarship recipient history. She's the first. Second one will be announced soon, but she got to throw out that first pitch at the Vikings charity softball game as well.
It's so interesting, Brian. We talked to a bunch of high school seniors and juniors over the last 2 weeks between the two of us. And if you're thinking about, should I apply for this or should I apply for that, Rachel's a good example of why you should apply. Because not only is she making a couple of bucks and helping her pay for school and minimizing her student loans and all that stuff, but she's getting to do things outside of school, like getting to know the Hams, like doing the thing with the softball thing. You never know where that scholarship is going to lead you and what it takes, 20 minutes to an hour to fill out most applications. Not all of them, some are long. But think of the value of the 2 hours that she took to sign up for the Ham Scholarship.
And I really like the poise with which she handled all of it. Obviously, the scholarship a year ago, the interviews with us, But even talking about the softball game, she was like, yeah, I just went and did my thing. Where I know if you and I would have gone, we would have come back going, I met Adam Thielen, I met J.J. McCarthy, I talked to Dallas Turner. We would have been like 5-year-olds.
Right, and I'd have thrown a slider, and it would have bounced six times.
Right.
And
I would have rolled it. I'd have played bocce.
I think what we learned right there is how much she's grown from the first time we had her on the air. Like, that was kind of my question. She is no longer a kid.
Absolutely. It was a blast being on the air with her. It's such a blast being on the air in general. We're going to do it for another hour. Noon to 1, it's going to be Monster Weekend Kickoff. Greg Grell will be in here and join us. Should be fun, but we want to thank everybody that took part in the Northland Sports page today. Julianne Vasicek, we know you tried. Vasicek or Vasicek, we'll get one version of you on the air eventually. We got a million apologies, just like we said we would. Dave Hoops, you're the best as always. Rick Rickert, that was a ton of fun. Rachel Hagen, I just love catching up with her.
Yeah, no, I agree. We had some really good people today. And we had a chance to talk about the basketball thing and how it shouldn't be seen negatively. It's been a great day.
100%. More football talk to come. Harbor Monsters in Kansas City. We preview that one for the next hour. Northland Sports page is done. Monster Weekend Kickoff is next. Stick around.